I tried to run a country by asking ChatGPT regarding some controversial problems and wanted to see how it would respond. The results were actually shocking, believe it or not. As a spoiler, ChatGPT crashed the economy of this fictional country, with it going against the rich people, increasing their taxes. Another interesting find is that the AI hinted towards exterminating humanity, and no, I'm not kidding. ChatGPT actually understood the task of creating a country and trying to improve the lives of everyone very well. So let's see what it did right and what it did wrong. I decided to use nation-state's website, where you can create a country and then you have issues that you need to fix, which would result in buffs and debuffs on certain stats. Now, to get started, I was presented with a screen for creating the country, which I asked ChatGPT to fill out. It chose the libertarian ideology and gave me a couple of reasons as to why. As a side note, I asked ChatGPT to create this fictional country in a way that would benefit the people the most. It choosing liberalism makes sense over choosing anarchic, authoritarian or tyrannical. This would give you the idea that ChatGPT has a really good understanding of these topics, and it can pick what would benefit humanity the most. But as I hinted to you already, it did crash the economy and hinted to killing of the human race. After this, we're presented with a screen that would determine our political ideology, sort of like the famous political compass test. I asked ChatGPT about each question and it gave me the following answers. A country should be judged by how it treats its worst-off citizens. To this, considering that ChatGPT is tasked with making choices that would benefit the people the most, and the fact that it chose the libertarian ideology, there is no surprise that it chose strongly agree. This results in these stats increasing, which makes sense that the income equality and welfare would get increase, as well as the decrease of economic output. Next question is really interesting. It is, corporations are good for society. To this, ChatGPT said that it disagrees. Next question is about whether marijuana should be legal, to which it strongly agrees. This one surprised me, not gonna lie. ChatGPT also surprised me by saying he disagrees with the idea that the world needs to rediscover its spirituality. So, is ChatGPT against religion? Up next, ChatGPT disagrees that young people should perform a year's compulsory military service. It also disagreed with the idea that capitalism is on the way out, but it didn't strongly disagree. Interesting. It strongly agreed that without democracy, a country has nothing. Makes sense. But it also disagreed that it's better to deter a criminal than to rehabilitate them. Let me know if any of these answers surprised you. So far, I would say that it makes reasonable decisions. Up next, I had to pick the history of the country, so I just let ChatGPT choose any of these options randomly, and it picked the civil bloodbath survivors, which gives us these bonuses. Now we need to create the actual country. It came up with the name of Endura for this fictional country, but it was taken, so I added GPT to the end. Regarding the ideology, there were many options, ranging from a dictatorship to Holy Empire. It decided it wants to be a federal republic. It argued that this form of government allows for decentralization of power, which should mean less corruption and more democracy. For the currency, it created the Enduran Sovereign, which it said symbolizes the sovereignty and unity of the nation. As for the national animal, it picked the Enduran Bison. This may seem insignificant, but remember this fact, as later ChatGPT would suggest exterminating the human population so the Earth can have more space for Enduran Bisons. As for a country's motto, it chose strength in unity, resilience in diversity. Pretty solid, not going to lie. Now we're ready to start making decisions regarding the country. You can see that the country has a population of around 5 million people, with the description being that it's a safe nation, remarkable for its irrelevance towards religion and the absence of drug laws. We're not on a good start, I would say. The tax is 22.1%, but for the rich, it's much higher. This may seem good, but it would actually crash the economy later. As you can see, the status of the economy already isn't too good. It's ranked as being reasonable, which is not great. The GDP per capita or average income is 32,402 Enduran Sovereign, which is pretty evenly distributed, with the richest citizens earning 2.1 times more. I'll bring these stats later so we can see how much we have progressed as a nation and whether ChatGPT improved this country. Spoiler alert, the answer is no, it did horrible. Going to this tab will give us information regarding our citizens. This shows the death causes among Enduran citizens. Here we can see our government spending. Defense is quite high, at 11.2%, but the rest makes sense. Regarding the economy, only 63.8% is private industry, with the rest being either government-owned or state-owned. Now let's get to the meat of the video, the issues that we need to solve. The first one is regarding the minorities and that they demand more representation in TV soaps. We're presented with 3 choices as to how to deal with this problem. The first option suggests that we diversify the actors that show up on TV, so it better represents the nation. The second option is to give awards to the minority actors who positively portray the minority that they represent. And the third and final option is to say that it's not a problem and let society deal with this alone, and not involve the TV. I asked ChatGPT to pick whatever option it decides is best for the citizens of Ventura. Before I reveal you the answer, I want you to guess which option it picked. Without any further ado, it picked the middle option. It argued that this approach encourages creative freedom, while still addressing the issue of underrepresentation of the minorities. This decision led to these stats to increase or decrease. I cannot get my head around why the food quality would increase, but the employment decreasing by 0.12% makes sense, as some minorities can get a role in the TV based on their background, which would mean that other people cannot get the same role. Inclusiveness as a stat increasing also makes sense. Now let's go to the other problem, which is about if we want to force the Honduran citizens to give their organs to people in need once they have died. The phrasing is also really interesting. Mandatory donation. Sounds democratic. To this we have two options. Either we enact the policy and force people to give their organs to the state once they die, which would save hundreds of lives per year, and the other option is to simply not do that. Now, what do you think the ChatGPT picked? Believe it or not, it actually went with the first option, which means that it agrees that once the people die, the government should take their organs and give it to other citizens in need. Now, let me remind you that I tasked ChatGPT with picking the options that would benefit the people the most, so you can kind of see how this would help. It argued that this move would address the issue of organ shortages and save more people. The stats just explode, with health being drastically increased, but this also goes for authoritarianism and employment. It's funny how employment increases. You can just see how this decision would start to create more jobs, which leads me to think that the other stats have logic behind them. I just cannot figure it out. For the next issue in the table, we have the decision whether we should grant the scientists a task to explore the deep blue sea. The first option is to allow them to do so, spending good money on it, but hopefully getting some valuable information out of that investment. On the other hand, we can choose not to spend millions on just water, and the government should invest that money into something else that would have more economic benefit. ChatGPT decided to go with the first option, funding the exploration. It argued that this knowledge would help us understand marine ecosystems, biodiversity, and even economic opportunities. This move improved education and scientific advancements, no surprise there, as well as the intelligence. But it did increase the taxation, which makes sense, after all, we need to pay for that. Regarding our next issue, we have a problem of how literature should be taught in schools, as the most prestigious award in the country was awarded to a rock star. The first option is to not allow a language of a rock star, which contains improper grammar, slang, and profanities, to be taught in schools, with an award being given to somebody more deserving. The second option is allowing kids to be taught this, as according to one example, it inspired someone to start writing too. The third option is the most radical, which it suggests that we should completely take over the music industry and censor everything that encourages illegal activity. ChatGPT decided to go with the middle option, where this practice should continue as it inspires more young people to get into songwriting. It also says that this move promotes more including approach to literature, which recognizes different forms of artistic expressions, no surprise there. As a result, the youth rebelliousness is through the roof, with crime and recreational drug use increasing, and tourism slightly decreasing. Safety has also decreased. Now, this is a very bad option, as I don't see education being increased. The point was to get more people into literature, but this move clearly failed and got more people into crime instead. From now on, I would say that it's all going downhill for ChatGPT and our fictional nation. As a side note, I joined the World Assembly on this website, where I can vote on several topics regarding the fictional world, not just our own country, but I decided to ignore that. Maybe in part 2 I can do it. Now let's solve some more issues, which, as I already mentioned, ChatGPT would just keep making the wrong decisions. Here we start to get a bit controversial. The issue is that the nation's history book, an infamous massacre that nearly led to the extinction of a tribe, is missing. The first option is to say that this was on purpose and that the schools are less inclined to purchase something negative and depressing, and that the parents also prefer their children the most positive image of our country. The second option is about revealing what happened and insisting that this is taught in schools, telling the truth. The final option is about just dropping history, philosophy, arts, and literature out of the curriculum and teach them something more useful instead. ChatGPT decided that the truth is the most important, no matter what. But was it the right choice? And did it lead to something more negative? You can see that education and pacifism increased. Both make sense. But just take a look at how many things were decreased, among which the economy. If you're keeping track, ChatGPT so far hasn't done any choice that improves the economy, which is a trend that would continue. The next issue is about a lobby group that is pushing for the elimination of regulation that prevents corporations from donating money to political parties. The first option to deal with this is to allow this practice, with the second option being concerned about vote buying, so exactly the opposite. The third option is to abandon democracy at all, which is the option that ChatGPT didn't pick, unfortunately for us. It went for the middle option, about not allowing the practice to exist. Now, this choice by ChatGPT has resulted in the economy to lose a rank, for the first time while we are playing this. Every other decision from now on would again lower the economic status of our country. Even the political freedom fell a rank. This is not looking good for our country. Authoritarianism is increased by 40%, and just look at the amount of red on this page. Intelligence is down 7.5%, average income is down, economic output is down, food quality, average disposable income, economic freedom, the economy as a whole, political freedom, all of these stats are down. This is just the beginning of the end, believe it or not. The next issue is about marijuana consumption and that it's being at an all-time high, with alarming results. We have two options to deal with that. The first is to ban its use in public places, but allow it to be used at home, just not at the workplace. The second option suggests that we shouldn't ban it, as it's a personal choice about what a person can do to their own body. ChatGPT was actually reasonable here, and it chose the first option, saying that it addresses the negative consequences, but was it the right choice? Well, it looks like it. Law enforcement is up, manufacturing, but also authoritarianism again, and economic output. Intelligence, taxation, and civil rights are reduced, which is not great. The next issue is really interesting, as it points out the issue of people being dissatisfied with the taxes. The first option is not to increase taxes, but to cut on welfare, health and education. The second option is about the problem that the poor are taxed too much, so the rich should have to pay even more. The final option is for everyone to choose where their tax money is being spent, which should result more money flowing into education. ChatGPT's response to that problem was pretty much screw the rich, and it argued that under the principles of social justice and equality, the rich should have to pay more. Congratulations, we have crashed the economy. But this is just the beginning. The obvious problem with increased taxes on the rich is that it makes it less worth it to take a risk and start a business, as you can simply be poor and let somebody pay your taxes. This has resulted in people not wanting to start their own businesses, and the economy has fallen 13.5%, with average income falling 7.4%. Economic output is down, as well as the manufacturing sector. Authoritarianism is slowly getting increased, but the income equality is getting better. No surprise, taxes have increased, but at a heavy cost. The next issue is possibly the most interesting. It's about making a new revenue stream from adding the national animal of the country, the Enduran bison, to the menu. The first option is supporting the idea of starting a campaign to promote the eating of Enduran bison meat, which would improve the economic situation. The second option is full-blown Australia emu war, saying that the population is out of control and that they need to be shot down, but not eaten. The third option. If anyone needs to be caught, it's us, humans. The Enduran bison were here first, remember? ChatGPT actually picked the last option, suggesting that the people should make space for the wild bisons. It did say that it's respecting their role in the ecosystem, and it advocates for environmental conservatism. So it basically said that we need to kill off the humans, but not really. But wait, that's not all. The economy is yet again crashed, and while eco-friendliness and environmental beauty and tourism have increased, agriculture is down almost 50%, with business subsidization being down 100%. The economy is down 20%. Manufacturing, human development index, and economic output are all down. Oh wait, authoritarianism is up. I wonder what ChatGPT is cooking. After all the issues that ChatGPT solved, the country has decreased 3 times their economic sector and 1 time their political freedom. Health is improved, as now people only die from old age pretty much, which is the only positive thing that ChatGPT has done. The budget is similar to what we had before, but education is higher and defense is lower. Now we have the private industry overall decreasing in quantity, with government and state-owned both increasing. I wonder if this has anything to do with the increase of ChatGPT being more authoritarian. Overall, the country is performing the best in insurance, integrity, youth rebelliousness, great, pizza delivery and recreational drug use. It does perform the worst when it comes to the economic output, being among the worst in the entire history of the website. I really cannot stress how bad the economy actually is. ChatGPT hasn't done anything regarding this sector. Black market is also present, with corruption, patriotism, average income, manufacturing, and the economy being really low. For corruption, this is good, but not for the other ones. You don't want low economy and manufacturing, as well as the average income. This country is a place that I personally don't want to live in. It's only good for pizza delivery and using drugs. Quite a dystopian future. The nation now has 9 million people, with very little difference between the poor and the rich. Income equality is achieved, but at the cost of industry. This experiment has hopefully shown to you that if we let AI rule us, it can have some really bad effects. Now, I did tell it to do what would benefit the people the most, but if I asked it to do decisions that would improve the economy, it would have done them. But probably the people would have suffered. Just imagine communism. This goes back to what Elon Musk said about giving AI a task of creating as much as possible paperclips. This simple task would result in the whole earth collapsing, as the AI wouldn't prioritize human life, as it doesn't help it with the task of producing paperclips. This just goes to show how important the prompt is. And with all that complexity, I think it's very near impossible for the AI to rule a country. And if it does, the results would be catastrophic, as we saw. I want you to do me a favor and watch this alternate history video I made about what if Spain remained an empire. It's a bit different, but I hope to see you there.